We could have watched Fatal Fight. We could have watched Conclusive Clash, but instead we watched Mortal Kombat 2021 because we're definitely not going back to 1995. If you want to know what we thought about that one, check out that review.
Yeah.
Spoiler, it didn't hold up to our nostalgia.
It's a stinker.
Beep. But a lot of people still love the 1995 movies, so we have to give, before we even get into 2021's Mortal Kombat, we have to give this fair warning. If you want the 1995 movie, you're not going to get it, so you're probably going to dislike this movie. If that's what you want, if you go into this thinking, I want that movie or something like it, then probably don't watch the movie then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you're not going to get that.
I agree.
Now, if you're a bit more open-minded and you're willing to see something a little different, then yeah, give it a shot. Yeah, but so I think that's a fair warning, wouldn't you? I think that's a fair warning.
Yeah, as a whole, I think it's pretty dumb to go into a new movie expecting old.
But
but people do that for some reason.
It is what it is. But this is
a
new adaptation of Mortal Kombat, man. One of the most famous properties in video game history. Of course, video game movies, let's just say, tend to blow for the most part. The question is, did this one, I'm already seeing headlines everywhere, this did not break the video game curse. I'm going to go ahead and say, fuck those headlines, don't listen to them. So spoiler, I liked this movie, and we'll talk about that. Off the cuff, did you dislike?
I kind of liked it, guy. I'm not even going to lie.
Cool.
I wouldn't say I adored it or anything, but it was pretty fun.
So we'll talk more about this. If you're not familiar with Mortal Kombat, then I probably don't watch the movie then.
Yeah.
If you are, then you know what you're getting into. You know, Earthrealm is on the verge of being conquered.
With a K?
Yeah, all with a K's. Yeah. Too many K's.
Even
so many K's, the KKK was like, what is this, guys?
Yeah, you gotta stop.
They also got beat up, so that's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, Earthrealm is on the verge of being conquered, and some champions must be lashed together in the battle against Outworld before they take over. That's the gist of the Mortal Kombat mythos, and that's the same here. Only we approach it in a different way, which has got to be one of the best things in the movie, in my opinion, is that it kind of starts you, after an introduction, it kind of starts you in media res, like you're in the middle of the action already, in a manner of speaking, even though you don't directly know that until you realize that basically all the other characters except for your new character of Cole Young has already kind of been in this for a while, you know?
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's a really cool way to introduce all this backlog of mythology in a quick and effective way and still make you give a shit about it. You know, which was a big controversy point, I think, for a lot of people, was that there was this new character that wasn't Liu Kang, that wasn't Sonya Blade, that wasn't
Johnny Cage, dude.
Yeah, the Johnny Cage controversy was big. People were like, he's not even in it? Guys, you got to have patience. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm going to say. But the point is, this is an effective way to bring you into this. And I kind of liked the mythical status that these characters that we know and love took on because of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's one of the cool things is like freaking, what's his name? Liu Kang.
Mm-hmm.
He's just cool.
Yeah, man.
Like, he doesn't really say a lot. You know, he's kind of a smaller character. But because you kind of get what he's been doing and what he does say is kind of important and you kind of get the gist of it, it just kind of makes his more silent way of being cooler.
Yeah.
You know?
He immediately cuts an impressive figure.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively. You know, the first moment you see him, you're like, that's Liu Kang.
Yeah.
That's fucking Liu Kang. You know, there's like an iconic aura around these characters. And I think using the Cole Young character, the new character, to introduce, to see the world of Mortal Kombat through was a really cool way to get all these characters together in one place, to make you care about them, and to unify the story, which it's all tied into Sub-Zero and Scorpion, you know, their ancient feud between their clans, and what we know about Mortal Kombat mythology, and what the movie lets you know, because it does reinterpret a lot of things here and there. Nothing too extreme, I would say. It's the skeletal structure of Mortal Kombat that remains, and you know, there's a few cosmetic changes here and there, as would be. I don't think there's a way to make a Mortal Kombat movie without having to change things, like changing some character motivations.
Yeah.
Or, there's just no way. It's long and storied.
Too many characters.
Too many characters. You have to kind of trim it down. So
yeah, when the games themselves, a lot of the story is told through like lore and shit.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta read. You know, it would be hard to translate that to a movie.
yeah, and I'd say this is a very fair representation of elements that are strong in Mortal Kombat lore that creates a story that I think would be very satisfactory to anybody that likes Mortal Kombat, especially in the recent years. It's more akin to that, especially in tone. I think it fits stuff more of the recent years where it's a lot more story heavy one, and there it's I guess a little bit more serious, but it still has that kind of like smart assy undertone.
Yeah, I think especially like in the recent ones where I agree it is a little more serious, a little more story heavy. They have Johnny Cage as kind of a humor vehicle, which works really well. Like his character really grew in those last few games. In this, you don't get Johnny Cage, obviously, but you do have like other people, especially Kano, who's the most comedic character, I guess, in this movie. And he's pretty funny, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy. I can see some people finding him annoying. But I mean, it's kind of intentionally so.
I saw a review that called him the most annoying character ever.
No, I
Come
disagree.
on, guys.
I mean, he's meant to be kind of annoying.
Yeah.
He is played very close to how he is in the original movie. I guess he would be the closest to how he was played in the old movie. But he gets a lot more breathing room, a lot more shit to say, a lot more shit to do in this one.
I think all the characters get a lot more to do. Your core characters that are the general thrust of the story, which would be Sonya and Jax gets a lot more,
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because the movie takes an interesting approach to it's the way it's laid out. Like it's not constant action. There's kind of like a breathing period in the middle, which interestingly the original kind of tried but failed miserably. It just became kind of bland. But it actually works in here because the characters are interesting and you kind of like them.
Yeah.
And you like being around them. So it actually works.
They introduced this element which, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know. Isn't in the games the idea of being marked for the tournament, like with an actual physical mark?
As far as I remember, it's not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
But anyway, they introduced that element as a means to designate who is going to be in this potential tournament. And it provides kind of an interesting way to move these characters forwards. In the term of Cole Young, he was born with it, so he doesn't really even know that he's part of this thing. In regards to Jax, he stumbled across it after he killed someone, and it transferred to him. With Sonya, she's kind of investigating this after it happened to her partner, and she kind of wants it, and you want her to have it. So that's cool. Kano gets it by killing someone just because he's Kano. It's really cool way to introduce to move forward the story and introduce the elements of the tournament.
Yeah.
It's a really cool way. Now, a lot of people have complained already that this movie does not have a tournament as would be a typical tournament. It doesn't, but I don't think it doesn't deter the movie. In fact, you still get basically a tournament, only it's not people sitting down and watching people fight style tournament.
Yeah.
It's fights that determine an outcome. And in a lot of ways, this movie is a setup to sequels. It's very clear by the end that that's the case. But it's a satisfactory setup to sequels. It doesn't feel like they just gave you a setup and you're like, I didn't get the end of this. No, you get a beginning, middle, and an end, and a lot of satisfying fights in between, and a lot of satisfying character development as far as a Mortal Kombat movie goes. More than I would expect from a Mortal Kombat movie, actually. And it feels like a open and closed story that also is leading into something bigger. So, I don't know, man. That shit didn't bug me at all. I don't feel like I got gypped a tournament or some shit like that.
I think especially because, I think, the tournament thing kind of got forgotten in the recent games. I haven't played 11, so I can't talk for 11. But, 10, it was post-tournament, so it was just kind of an afterthought, really.
Right.
So I don't really care about that. Who gives a shit? And they do explain it why well. So and there's kind of the idea of the tournament there just by the passing of the power and all that shit. If you beat someone, you basically get the mark. So
Yeah.
who cares?
Also, it's kind of a cool way to give you some background on how past tournaments have worked. You
Yeah.
know, the insinuation that Outworld has cheated their way to the top is, well, it's heavily implied, shall we say. So the general thrust of the story follows Outworld basically trying to kill all the competitors
Yeah.
before the tournament even begins, just so they can win by default, which is the impetus for all the fights to happen, basically. And that's, I don't know, man, enough for me. I don't know. I don't see a fucking problem with that. You still get the fights. There's still a tournament style thing at the end.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wasn't bugged by that at all. I know some people really wanted Scorpion to be a big part of this story, and he is, just not in the way you would think. I don't know what you thought about it, but I thought the way this was carried out was actually pretty fucking cool. Instead of just smattering Sub-Zero all around, Scorpion all around the movie, he was very clearly projected. It's very clearly projected, I should say, at the beginning who he's related to. I mean, it's basically handed to you in a fucking line of exposition.
Yeah.
So it's really not a spoiler. The new guy is related to Scorpion, okay? And as a result, he's kind of like the de facto Scorpion. Not really, but, he's the placeholder until Scorpion does re-enter the storyline. I thought it was cool because it was a very satisfactory story arc for Scorpion and for Cole at the end. So I really liked that, man. I know some people wanted more ninja on ninja action, but I'm more concerned with the story gelling a lot better. So I thought that was really cool. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think I mean I don't know. I get what people.
Ninjas are cool.
Ninjas are cool. These are the two classic character battles, basically classic battles in joke that we use, but is actually true. I get it, but I do think that the coolest fight in the movie is the fight between Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and it leads up really well. And if it hadn't been done in that way, it would have just been lame. Like if you saw these two dudes fighting over and over through the movie, it would have lost a lot of the impact.
Yeah, you're right, man.
So the way it was built up, and he comes in at such a cool point, and it just leads to a cool ass fight that's put together really well. So
there's two ways it could have sucked. Like you said, if he was splattered all over the movie, it would have just been series after series of battle wanting to see these two guys fight.
Yeah.
And or seeing them fight and being like, oh, I already saw that.
Yeah.
Conversely, the other way they could have ruined it was if when he does reappear and we get a final actual fight between them, it would have sucked. But it doesn't. It really pays off, So it's a fucking cool ass arc. You see him when you want to see him, or I should say you see him when it's important on both ends of the spectrum. So I thought really cool. Another concern that I had going into this personally was, and I know you did too, was that the effects weren't going to be great. Some of the trailers didn't look 100%
good.
You know what I'm saying? They looked a little cutscene-y if you're into video games, which would be appropriate. It's a video game movie. Why wouldn't it look like a cutscene? There are some scenes that are very clearly, an effects background. Like there's these large statuary in our
statues
world
are super fake. Yeah.
that are clearly CGI. There's
even the statues in the temple, Raiden's temple, that are like damn cartoony.
It's
basically.
a lot of like scenery that's mostly looks that way. But and of course CGI is used in the movie. There's people with fucking powers and lizard people and shit like that. So obviously CGI is used in the movie. But you know what? It's all pretty decent. There's nothing that's overtly awful. There are things that you're like, that didn't look that great. But like I said, it's mostly contained to like the background stuff. I think for the most part, the characters all look pretty good. Surprisingly, that reptile-like creature was...
He was surprisingly good
looking, man. Goro was the one I was most concerned with because in the trailer he didn't look that great. And I gotta say, in the movie he actually looks pretty good, man.
I do think that with Goro, sometimes he looks like a little off. but it's because he's literally a CGI creature. There's no way of not looking a little off in a real environment, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it looks surprisingly good.
But it does look good, yeah.
He looks like
Pino. I think in the hair, like it flows too much, you know. It's a little over animated.
If I had a complaint in terms of CGI on people or with people, it'd be that some of the blood is that CGI blood.
Yeah, and it flows too weirdly.
Yeah, it's not overtly awful, and we are talking about a movie where, you know, fucking people throw fireballs and shit, so it kind of fits in, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of the weird look of, everything fits into this kind of more fantasy-oriented take on the material, you know, which is something that I can't really say about the original because it was just kind of like a martial arts movie, the original, that just happened to have these overtones of weirdness with really bad CGI in the 95 one I'm talking about. But this one, it does lean into this. These are people, you know, that are real, and then there's this thing that also happens that's super, super unreal. Can we make that work? Surprisingly, it feels like it personally, it allowed me to go into the flow of this movie and be taken away into the story, which something like Godzilla vs. Kong did not, for example, because I never was like, all right, I'm in for the ride. I was just like, this sucks. Whereas this one, I was like, I'm in for the ride. Cool.
I think that, again, like I mentioned earlier, is that it does let itself breathe. It's not constant CGI. It's not constant action. I mean, not that Godzilla vs. Kong was. It's actually 2 fights, people. 2 fights. 40 minutes between each of them. We timed it. Anyway, Godzilla vs. Kong is exhausting to look at because there's so much shit going on. This is like, it uses real sets, you know, it doesn't look disgusting. It has characters you like. It tries to build the characters you like. You know, and it has kind of a middle section where characters are just kind of talking with occasional little fight scenes.
It has a middle section that would fit right into the 80s.
Yeah.
If they had a musical montage, which they kind of sort of do, in a manner of speaking, it would be right in the 80s, you know, where these characters are trying to find their power, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, too, by the way. Giving a logical, yet still fantastical reason for how these characters can attain the powers. Provided for some entertaining sequences and allowed you to be like, okay, I believe that these characters have these redonkulous powers. So very cool. Yeah, I agree with that. That middle section was really cool. It has a nice and steady clip. It has a lot of fights in the midst of that. You're never like, oh, where's that next fight? There are plenty of fights, and they are pretty entertaining. What do you think about the fights, man? Anything that disappointed in that regard?
I don't think they're disappointing. I do think some of them are maybe a little too quick.
I would agree with you yesterday when I first watched it, but it's one of those movies when you're watching it, you know, you're like taking everything in. And when you already know what the fucking movie is, you could the fights move a lot more.
Well, here's the thing.
Flow a lot better than you think.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I do think that the fights are a little too quick. Some of them, not all of them. Some of them are a little too quick, and at times it does feel like there's maybe a little too much pause between fights. But what the pause that's there, I like, you know, so I don't really mind it. Specifically, one fight is a non-fight, and that's the Nitara's Mad Death. But that was kind of cool. I like that. But I could see some mad Nitarites being like, "Come on, guy."
Yeah. Our former compatriot in crime, the Guardian, was like, "There's some pacing issues, but it's fucking rad." I personally don't see it. I think you'll agree when you see it again. I'm not saying that you have that same point of view, but when I first saw it, I was like, I wish there was more of that fight or whatever. But I actually think it's a pretty good pace. They pretty much sort out, and like you say, everything that's not a fight is very enjoyable to watch. So you're not losing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Which is cool. I mean, it's kind of unusual for an action movie to be nowadays. I should say to be like, all right, we need to get to that cool scene.
Here's the thing, like, I think that the shorter fight scene. I don't want to say shorter, but I'll just say shorter. The shorter fight scenes kind of make that final long scene between the Sub-Zero and Scorpion that much cooler, because it's this prolonged scene that takes its time and has, it builds up really well, and you're like, this is badass, and it's just like non-stop cool shit over and over, and that's where you basically get all the video game moves back to back. It's done really well, that final scene, and before that you get cool scenes that are kind of quick but cool, and then you get that prolonged scene that you're like, okay, they can do both things. You know what I mean? I think those were kind of strategically done in that way. I don't think they're short, like I said. I think they just feel short because maybe that is what it is. There's a lot going on, and maybe they're just like, damn, homie.
I think it's also very reflective of how the games go. Sometimes you beat a motherfucker immediately
like 3 seconds,
and
guy.
destroy the shit out of them. And sometimes you're like, God damn, I can't fucking beat this guy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how a lot of these fights go. Example, the reptile fight is a lengthy fight.
Yeah.
And it involves 3 people versus 1 person. And one person ends up taking the win after a while. And then we have something like the Naitara fight, which is brief.
3 seconds.
But the impact of it is like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This motherfucker smoked this bitch in 1 second.
See, that's the thing. That's kind of why I don't want to say short, because the shorter ones have something that's cool and shows the character being cool.
Yeah.
Like the Kung Lao beating What's-Her-Face in 3 milliseconds. And you're like, damn, homie, that's really the first time you see like a really, really gory moment. I mean, there's stuff before that, but that's like the huge big one. The first really big one,
I will say this, and I maybe you'll agree with me, maybe not. I will say that the movie is surprisingly ungory.
Yeah, I agree.
Until there's like a kill.
I agree.
For the most part. There's some that are gory, like Scorpion's battle at the beginning. There's blood flying everywhere. But then when we're into the main storyline in the present day, you don't really see a lot of blood during the fights until somebody gets hurt. And it's usually at the end of the fight. Which, given the amount of trauma that characters take in Mortal Kombat, the game, would make sense to not show them getting, I don't know, their head skinned off or some shit. But it is kind of odd. For example, there is a scene... Who is it, man? Somebody gets... I think it is during the beginning fight where there is blood. But I think Sub-Zero slams Scorpion's head onto a stone, and there's like a splatter of blood on the stone. But when he comes up, there's no blood on that boy. You know what I'm saying? Well, imagine that, but throughout the movie. There will be blood. Believe me, there will be. But you're not going to see a lot of it during the fight proper until there is a fatality or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Like a lot of like the early reviews, especially because I noticed a lot of the early reviews were a little positive. Where like, oh, this really pushes the R. It's like insanely gory. I never really got that. I've seen gorier stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I've seen gorier theatrical stuff. It's cool looking. It is kind of it's cool just to see a freaking Mortal Kombat movie with gore.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell, man? That's like the one thing that you had to do in the 95 one, and you didn't do it. But I do think that, there's cool stuff in there. It's just kind of brief. But when you do get them, they're cool. Like, I do think that the when they do use them, it's effective because it's not, like you said, showing a dude getting a freaking spike in his eye and then continue to do that. It kind of lessens the impact. So when Jax gets his arms frozen off, you're like, damn, homie.
That's the end of the fight.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, that homie's dead.
Like in real life.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but I've heard some people complain about that, and it's like, I mean, come on, guy. Like you say, you can't have a guy that just got a spike through his fucking head still continue to fight and continue to have some sort of credibility in your movie. So, but it is weird that people don't get like a gash or something. Like Goro gets a little gash here once, so that's cool. Well, actually, he's one of the few people that gets he gets his arm lopped off and continues to fight.
And his guts.
And his little guts.
Yeah.
But, you'll notice that, but I don't think it's a problem because it makes sense, one, and two, there's a conclusive nature to the fight when you're like, oh shit, that motherfucker just got splattered.
Yeah.
There are some fools in here that you want to see punched in the face, like
Reiko!
Holy shit, he sucks. And just visually, he sucks.
Super
it's not that his character sucks. He's just kind of like a background bad guy. But, man, he's annoying.
I kind of expected more fodder, honestly. I kind of, like, when I heard Nataro was in this, I was like, oh, she's fodder. She is.
She is fodder.
But I expected there to be more like shitty characters no one cares about, like Meat and Mocap.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody's favorite. And, dude, if this movie had sucked my cock off and they had put Su Hao in the first 10 minutes and he gets killed, it would have been the best movie of all time. Because Su Hao's got to be the worst character of all time.
I hope this movie's successful and there's a sequel just so Su Hao can get killed in it.
Yes.
Su Hao sucks and should die. That is what, if I ever run for president, that's my platform.
One of the coolest things about the DC Comics run that they did was in the first panel, Su Hao's dead. You're like, all right.
Yeah, but there is a smaller roster than you would expect for a higher budgeted movie, but it's about as big as the roster to the original. There is less of the people that you would expect, which I think is refreshing, honestly. Save some of the cooler guys for later.
Yeah, especially because most of the bad guys, spoiler, Matt, die. So, you know, why would you get rid of all the freaking cool ones, basically?
Yeah, so, and of course, for those of you concerned with Johnny Cage, that's what the sequel's for, literally at the end of this movie, you know? And that's what I like a lot. That's another thing I like a lot about this movie. And it's kind of showing restraint for a Mortal Kombat movie. It's not throwing everything at you at once. It's going, hey, let's chill out.
It actually feels kind of small.
Mm-hmm.
Al said it felt claustrophobic. I disagree. I think it's, like you said, showing restraint. It's intentionally not blowing its load. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or it's bloody load. Oh. And that's kind of cool. Yeah, like you said, after seeing Godzilla vs. Kong, which literally made me want to die and never see anything CGI again, it was kind of neat to see something not be annoying, basically.
Yeah, constant overload.
Yes.
Yeah, man, I like that, man. I like that feeling of like, cool, we can expect more. The problem is some people are really disliking that. So I don't know I don't know what the audience wants anymore. We don't want that. We want this. Everybody says one thing, then they get it, and they don't want that anymore. So I don't know. I just hope that this gets a sequel because it sets up a lot of cool shit. You know, so there's that. Is there anything in this movie that you would be like, that kind of blew a little bit? I'm gonna say one. This might be controversial. I didn't really dig the guy that played Shang Tsung.
I kind of agree.
He kind of looked like Gene Simmons half the time, so that's a problem.
He looked like Mad Gene, but he also had, and I'm an expert in this because I'm currently going through what we call in the business going mad bald. He's got a mad whack ass wig.
Maybe it's not a wig.
It looks wiggy, guy.
And you know, Asiatic folk have some silken locks.
That's a good point. Silken like that in a Chinese man.
The point is his hair looks
like a wig.
Yeah, like a wig.
Like I don't think I'm very sensitive to movie wig hair.
You're not Rob Zombie.
I'm not Rob Zombie, but that looked like a mad wig. Like whoever put that wig on should have been like, this looks bad. Let's do
I'm not concerned
else.
with the wig. I'm concerned with the face.
Yeah, he just doesn't look cool. He doesn't look cool. He doesn't really have a presence, really. He's just kind of there.
Yeah, I think a lot of that with him, and I'm going to put him in here, but don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this 100%. And Raiden is that maybe English is their second language, so some of the line delivery wasn't exactly 100% what you'd expect. Instead of a statement, sometimes it sounds like they're asking it, you know, stuff like that. I think that's more with Raiden in terms of line delivery.
Yeah.
But Shang Tsung just for a character like Shang Tsung lacks a bit of a presence. I think if he would have killed at least one more person, it would have been cool. But he does kill a very important person, and that's a cool scene.
He just looks kind of whack.
And you know the script communicates what he's doing and why, but his people are more come off as more menacing than him. So hopefully the sequel can solve that by giving him scenes that actually carry that across. His menace across versus what we got here. In terms of Raiden, I actually like the way they handled Raiden.
Yeah,
I thought he came off as a lot more manipulative and cunning than Christopher Lambert, who was cool, mind you, but you know, let's face it, also cheesy.
Yeah.
There is of course that barrier of the fact that the English is not the first language of the actor, but I don't think it's a big issue. I think the character's written in a
Yeah.
clever way.
I think at first when I saw him, like just on strictly visual, I was like, that's kind of whack. But he's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like he kind of grew on me. You know, he's one of those characters that kind of almost doesn't look at all like his in-game character, but the in-game character was literally a white guy, so that's probably why, or a Mexican, right? I think. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, but yeah, he's kind of cool, and his voice is kind of cool, even though you know, he has kind of an accent that is obviously impeding with his delivery. But he was kind of cool. He grew on me quite a bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the way his character is written. Which, I mean, I'm not shitting on the actor, obviously, but I really liked that, man. I really liked how they played off. You know, we always know that Raiden's kind of like towing the line between interfering and not, but they played it clever here, and it tied into everybody's storyline and the way things happened, and even kind of played the fucking bad guys. Really cool. So that was.
I think I want to give mad kudos to the dude that played Scorpion.
Yeah.
I think he just looks cool.
Yeah.
You know, like
he could act like shit and he looks cool.
Yeah, like even when he was just like a human dude in the beginning, you're like, damn, that dude looks badass.
Yeah.
For just something about his face and just the way he moves, you're like,
really, we gotta give kudos to the fact that they let Asians play Asians in this.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, that alone is a fucking achievement.
But yeah, he was badass just visually.
Yeah. Liu Kang also badass.
Yeah, dude, I was like, damn, this dude homie like saying nothing, but he's badass.
I ain't shitting on Robin Shu, but this guy's Liu Kang looking.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
And there's just an air of like badassness without him really doing much.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's cool too.
I
gotta say that Sub-Zero looks like a total jerk.
Yeah, he does. Sub-Zero though was in your favorite movie, A Dead Mine. So that's in the Raid, of course, but who cares about the Raid? He was in Dead Mine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I do gotta say that Sub-Zero. This is not a negative thing, but I do got a minor critique with Sub-Zero.
Okay.
I think I think it's the guy's physique.
Okay.
His head looks mad huge, and he's got like this kind of like neck armor, which just makes his head look immense. And I was kind of like, is this what's up with his humongous head? But at the end, he takes off his armor, and I saw his physique. I was like, I think the dude's just thin, and so
Well, I think the issue is he is thin, thinly built, lithe, if you will.
Yeah.
But his ninja hood is thick as hell.
Yeah, it's like
when he actually takes it off, it's like a Batman thing. Like it's ripped.
It's
and
like
has thick ass
rubber.
foam.
Yeah.
So you're like, damn, boy.
So yeah, they obviously can't take away from the man, so they added to his head, and he's a thin man, so it looks immense. His head.
That being said, Sub-Zero's pretty badass.
Dude, Sub-Zero's just his movement in that final fight is like, damn, this dude moves cool.
Yeah.
Like he was doing all these cool ass like summoning ice moves, and you're like, damn, that's cool.
Now I saw Chris Stuckman's review of this, and he kind of he gave it a C+, by the way. Just spoiler for you in case you didn't see that. He bemoaned, although he enjoyed it, he bemoaned the, I guess, editing during the fights. He said that he didn't like that it was cutting too much during the fights, that he kind of lost track of the fights. I don't know where you stand on that, but I don't know where the hell Chris is coming from.
I kind of,
zero confusion during the fight.
I kind of get what he's saying, because there's a couple scenes where it's like, there's a couple cuts here and there, but I didn't really mind. I noticed occasionally that it's a little like up close, but I think that's just the norm now. I'm used to that. And you get scenes that show off the fights in wider shots and that let the fights breathe, so it's not really a problem. I thought it was gonna be a problem early on, but it wasn't at all.
Yeah,
so I disagree.
I just didn't. I was never confused in the fights.
Yeah,
I thought they looked fine. I think they're edited fine.
Yeah, that's another thing. They're not confusing at all.
Now, of course, everybody when watching a martial arts movie, they want to see like as close to a one take as possible. Everybody wants that, but I mean, it's just not the standard in Hollywood. And but they look cool. They look fine. They look pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're shot more like standard Hollywood stuff, but then there is shots that you don't normally get. You know, there's longer takes and stuff, mainly with the Asian characters, interestingly. Mainly Sub-Zero, actually. So I don't know if it's just down to the actors being able to do that stuff longer form, but it was standard. I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't confusing or anything. I do think that one thing that's kind of corny, but ultimately I don't hate because the movie kind of knows it's corny and it's like I'm alright with it. You know, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Contrary to what Al thinks, is the constant fatalities and flawless victories, and stuff like that.
And that's not the only times. It's self-aware of what it's doing, but there's also a lot of humor in the movie.
Yeah.
I just think it's not as jackassy as it was in the first attempt at the movie, the 1995 version, because they had Luke Cage. They had Johnny Cage, which is a constant jackass machine. So you don't have that here. But
or Shang Tsung announcing it.
Yeah. You do have Kano being, basically, you're either going to love him or hate him.
Yeah.
But he is kind of like the humor guy. But then you have other points in the movie that, either they acknowledge the material or they outright are humorous. So it's not a movie that's taking itself 100% serious. It's very much in tone with the recent games. That they play the story serious, but every now and then you get a wink that's clearly like, oh, yeah, of course, we're playing a ridiculous game.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So that was pretty cool. I really like the music in this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But I fucking still hate that they didn't bring the original theme back. Dude. They do bring that crappy remix at the end during the titles. But the music during the fucking actual movie is actually pretty badass.
I agree.
Surprisingly.
Whack
so that's
theme.
cool.
Yeah. Dude, that's like the one thing of the original adaptation that didn't need changing.
Yeah.
Didn't need a re-adaptation. They could have literally just dropped that boy into the middle of this movie with no context.
Yep.
It could have just gone to a black screen and played the music and would have been like, shit, yes!
Yep.
10 out of 10.
It could have been during a scene where they were eating a sandwich.
Yeah.
Been like, holy shit, did that just drop? Did that just fucking drop?
Dude, this theme is so freaking epic that after I sat through, or after we sat through the 95 I believe, one recently, and we're like, this sucks. When that theme hit at the end and they all lined up to fight Shao Kahn, I was like, hell yeah, I can't wait. That's how good that theme is.
Knowing that the sequel sucks even.
Yes.
Yeah, the theme is great in the original. I have no idea what they felt the need. That's fine, remix it. But also put the original in there,
Dude,
goddammit.
That's not my theme.
That's it. That's the only thing I wanted from the original. And I think whether you like the original or not, we used to like it. We just, upon revisiting it, just didn't hold up.
This was that was one of the movies I saw the most as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people grew up with that movie. And they still love it, and I understand why. We just didn't like it anymore.
Yeah. And it broke our hearts.
Because we loved it.
I would recommend watching that review because you go through stages. At first, you're like, yeah, it was pretty cool. And by the end, you're like, oh, man, that sucked. And you're like sad, dude.
Yeah, because it's a beloved movie for many, and I just could not. It's not a good movie. But I think whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you agree with me on that point of view or not, we can all hold hands together across the world in unison, in agreement that the original theme is rad as shit.
It's so good, dude.
So it needed to be in this, but unfortunately it's not. That's, I think, the biggest mark against it. That and Shang Tsung looking like Gene Simmons up the wazoo. Is there any character you didn't like visually? Besides Reiko looking straight up annoying.
Yeah. I kind of... Like, I can see this character being hated for many reasons, but I kind of liked Melina. She was kind of cool looking, and she got mad donk.
She got that afro booty.
Dude, I was looking at that donk hard.
Yeah.
But I could... Damn, you did? I could see people being like, that's terrible.
Yeah, I liked her.
I thought she was kind of cool looking.
I actually wanted more of her, but...
I agree.
We didn't get a lot of her.
I guess that I can think of right now, Raiko's pretty...
Man, he's visually annoying.
Looking.
And it's super cool that Jax gets to destroy him because the most annoying part of him is his face.
Yeah.
And Jax... let's just say Raiko's face is no more. Let's just say that.
I was not disappointed because his kill was awesome. But it happens on the pit and he doesn't get uppercut into the pit. I was like, oh, man.
True, but that face needed
Yeah,
to
that
go.
face needed to go. I agree.
So that's cool. I like Jax's story arc. That's pretty cool because he got them wimpy ass arms
Dude,
at first.
his shitty arms suck ass. I wonder
Uh,
what. Look, so he had the wimpy arm
Uh-huh.
because his arms got frozen off. By the way, that was pretty gruesome the way they showed that. But if his arms hadn't been frozen off, would he have still gotten metal arms?
I mean, I don't know. I
Cause
guess
like,
not.
Cause he like taps into his soul power, and they like pimp out his
Well,
metal
the soul
arms.
power is just triggered by whatever is important to the person.
So his arm.
So if he had arms, it would have, I don't know, upped something else. Maybe his mad
wiener.
Lexington Steel wiener.
Damn, but
Yeah.
if you knew that, he'd be like, "Damn, homie, I could have had a mad
his
wiener."
arms though. Could have frozen my wiener off or some shit. Get a metal wiener? Hell yeah.
Yeah, he does
Metal
got
wiener, hell yeah, is my review.
he does got a mad wimpy arm though.
Yeah, him wimpy arms is not dope.
But he's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, even somebody that's super lame looking in the games like Nitara is pretty cool looking in this.
Yeah.
So that's cool that they achieved that wonder. So yeah, man, I think everything in terms of the character design is pretty cool. Pretty much in line with what you would expect a version of the character. There's been so many versions of these characters.
Yeah.
That there's no definite version except for maybe like a Liu Kang or whatever, and they pretty much not came out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
So,
the only like outright lames would be Shang Tsung.
Yeah, that face, man, I can't get over that
Shang
face.
Tsung. I could see some people disliking Raiden because at first I was like, he's kind of whack, but he's actually kind of cool, and
Yeah.
it kind of grew on me. So
Yeah, he grows on you, is
Yeah.
what they say. Anyway, let's give a final review on a scale of 1 to 10. Again, relative to movies of its ilk. What up?
well, movies of this type, aka video game film, have notorious been dookie in the world of film. Which is a little redundant there.
Indeed.
Anyway, compared to its original, it's like not even close, guy.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. I used to like that, but I went back to it, and it was Duke. Sometimes you go back to things, and if you don't lie to yourself, they suck.
Yeah.
And no knock if you still like it. I just personally thought it sucked mad ass. I can't nail into the ground how much that movie sucked my dick. It did have mad beefcakes though, so I'll give that one.
Lots of beefcakes.
I'll give that one a 1. I don't know what I gave it originally, but it doesn't matter.
That one?
I don't know.
Rate this one.
This one I'll rate. I'm gonna give it an 8. I feel like maybe it's a little too high for this kind of movie, but I am rating it in the video game movie scale.
Yeah, look, let me just put it this way. In the video game movie scale, this motherfucker's like a fucking 9.
Yeah, you're right.
There's not a lot of good
There's not a lot of
movies.
good movies.
There's only one really good one, in my opinion, that's Silent Hill. But if we're comparing it to just movies of its ilk,
Yeah.
in terms of action movies, martial arts movies, and shit like that, I give this a strong 7.5, man. It's very entertaining. If you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, the games, I don't see you not liking this. But then again, I'm hearing a lot of
Yeah.
people going, this sucks. So I don't know, but I had a lot of fun with this. It's just a fun fucking time, you know what I'm saying? Even though Shang Tsung looks like Gene fucking Simmons, which is a disappointment, but it's still very cool. I look forward, hopefully, to a sequel, and hopefully, they'll let the people do what they want again instead of listening to fans, because we all know that half the time that goes to shit.
Yeah.
They'll end up ruining the fucking flow of a story. So sometimes they're right. I'm not saying fans are wrong sometimes. But most times they're like, can we just let the people tell the story? Alas, this may not be the case. For now, we have this fucking movie.
We gotta start a movement, though, I gotta say, to bring in Su Hao. Hashtag bring Su Hao in.
Just to kill him.
Just to mark him within the
Hashtag
first...
just kill Su Hao,
the
please.
first frame of the movie.
You can make a shitty sequel if you want.
Just kill
Just
Su
kill
Hao.
Su Hao. But anyway, that's Mortal Kombat 2021. Check it out. Tell us what you thought about it. Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't. We'd be interested to know either way. In the meantime, we're out.